Hi, I'm Josh, and today we're going to bring a little taste of Italy into the kitchen by making risotto. So to get started making risotto, the first thing we have to do is we have to put a cutting board onto the counter. Now everybody at home runs into this problem with their cutting board where it easily slides around all over the counter. There's an easy fix for that. What we're going to do is going to take a couple of paper towels and we're going to damp them. You take your paper towels, you open them up, place them on the counter, put your cutting board on top, and now it won't slide anywhere. Now, before we can get started making risotto, we have to do some mise en place. So, we already have our rice, and what we're going to use is we're going to use arborio rice. Now, arborio rice does not need to be washed before you cook it. Okay, we have a habit of where we wash our rice before we cook it. You don't have to wash the rice when you're making risotto, okay? But you want to use a good rice, a good Italian rice like arborio rice. Next, we're going to finely dice a shallot, and you want 2 cloves of garlic. We're going to use 1 massive clove of garlic right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to crush it. So first, let's go ahead and dice up a shallot. Make sure you're using a very sharp knife. The most dangerous thing in the kitchen is a dull knife. You want to make sure that you're using a really sharp knife. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to first peel off as much as we can of the outer layer. Okay? Just put it off to the side. Next, you're going to take your knife and you're going to want to cut down lengthwise between the root and the stem. Split them in half. Okay? Next, we're going to peel the outer edge. It's completely off. Then, we're going to cut the end off. We don't need it. We're going to repeat on the other half. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut the end off. Again, we don't need it. Next, we're not going to cut all the way to the root. We're going to go almost to the end, and we're going to make straight cuts all the way down. And then we cut horizontal. Once we're cut horizontal, then we can finally dice a shallot. And there we have a finely diced shallot. In a medium saucepan, you're going to want to take some chicken broth. If you do not have the time nor the available necessities to make chicken stock from home, you can definitely use box stock. And what I'm using for this recipe is chicken broth that has 33% less sodium. If you can get unsalted chicken stock, that would be pretty good too. But what we're going to do is we're going to pour the chicken stock into the pot. And this goes on the back burner until we can get it nice and hot. So we're going to put it on a medium heat until we can get it nice and hot. Next, we're going to need a large skillet, like so. And what we're going to do is we're going to lightly coat the skillet with some olive oil. Take a paper towel. Let's get that olive oil all the way around the skillet. Turn the heat on to medium. We're going to check for heat. And now what we do is we add our arborio rice. And what we want to do is we want to get this nice spread around. So what we're doing is we are toasting a little bit of the risotto rice or the arborio rice. Now, risotto is a recipe or a dish that requires a lot of attention. This is not something that you can just set it, forget it, and walk away from. As we're waiting for this to heat up, let's talk about risotto for a little bit. Risotto is a nice Italian dish, comes from the Lombardy region of Italy. Typically, rice is served as a side dish in the United States. In Italy, risotto, which is a rice dish, and it can be made as a main dish, all right, or even an appetizer, okay? The great thing about risotto is you can mix anything with it. You can make lobster risotto, pumpkin risotto, butternut squash risotto, pea risotto, wild mushroom risotto, okay? Risotto is a very versatile dish, okay? With a few minor changes, you can take risotto from the basic dish that we're cooking today and turn it into something incredible. As we pan roast the arborio rice, we're not really trying to put a brown color on the rice. What we're doing is we're slowly cooking the rice until the outer edge of the rice, it might be hard to see, but the outer edges of the rice start to turn a little translucent. That is what we're looking for. As with most foods in Italy, you cook rice to al dente and you cook pasta to al dente. Al dente means it is slightly undercooked. Not raw, just slightly undercooked, which means there'll be a little bit of a bite, which is okay. That's supposed to happen. We want to constantly keep the rice moving around a little bit. We don't want to burn the rice. Risotto is something that takes a little bit of time to cook. I know I'm chopping up these videos, and that's okay. I'm doing so to slow or to make it a little bit quicker in the videos. Risotto itself takes a little bit of time to cook because you're slowly cooking the rice is what you're doing. Now that some of the rice is starting to turn translucent, we're going to add our shallot. The shallots bring a lot of flavor to the rice and to the dish itself. We're going to let them soak up into the pan. We're basically sweating out the shallot. Now that the shallots have sweat out a little bit, now it's time that we add 1 spoonful at a time of chicken stock. You want hot stock. Now I tend to cook things slightly different than most cooks would because I have what I believe my own ways of introducing a little bit of flavor. So now that we have our first spoonful of chicken stock in here, next we're going to add a little bit of dry white wine. Now the reason why I added a spoonful of chicken stock first before adding the white wine is because, one, you have to be very careful when cooking with alcohol. You can get a flambe going, and we do not want that. All right, so now we add the white wine. That is a dry white wine, and what we're going to do is we're basically going to cook off of the alcohol. And we're basically trying to get the flavors of the grapes into the dish. A traditional risotto is typically creamy. You don't want it so thick and creamy that it doesn't slide all over the plate. You want it to be somewhat creamy and fairly loose, but you don't want liquid to be exposed on the edges. You basically don't want it to swim in liquid. Okay, and what we're doing in order to make it somewhat that creamy is, as we slowly add the chicken stock, the rice slowly cooks. And as the rice slowly cooks, it releases those starches and it slowly becomes creamy. So we'll add a spoonful of chicken stock. As this is cooking, brief moments, we'll slide in salt and the crushed garlic. A little bit of salt, and we put in some crushed garlic. So how do I know when to add more chicken stock? Well, it's real simple. As you're cooking down, you see the liquid slowly dissipate and disappear. It's not steaming off, okay? It's actually being absorbed slowly by the rice. So what I'm looking for is when I slide the spoon back, I can see the bottom of the skillet. When I get to that point there, that is when I add another spoonful of chicken stock. The reason why you want the chicken stock to be hot is because it is really hard to cook something that is hot when you mix something that is cold. And like most rice, as it cooks, it will thicken up. There's one other ingredient that we're going to add to this dish, and that is freshly grated Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese. I'm using freshly grated cheese and not the store-bought pre-shredded cheese, because one, freshly grated cheese tastes a whole hell of a lot better. And two, Parmesan is going to melt very wonderfully as we cook this dish, and it will help in the creamy process of making risotto. Add another spoonful of chicken stock. As you see, I'm constantly moving the rice, moving it around, agitating the rice itself. See, the rice is really starting to thicken up a bit. A good cook always tastes the food as they're cooking it. Man, if you guys can smell what I'm smelling, it smells amazing. Garlic with the shallots. Add a little bit more salt. Add another spoonful of chicken stock. I'm going to slowly, gradually add chicken stock as you're cooking. Now the rice is almost where I want it to be in taste. And now we add Parmigiano-Reggiano. This is what's going to make it a little bit more creamy. That all mixed in and let it cook down. I'm going to let this cook down a bit and then we'll come back. So as you see, the risotto is coming along nicely. We're going to go ahead and taste it. Getting a little on the creamy side, which is good. Risotto is something that as soon as you serve it, you want to start eating it. We are right where we want to look, so we're going to add a little bit more chicken stock. And then we're going to plate up. Kill the heat. This is exactly what we want right here. What we do is we plate up. And then we dress it with a little bit more cheese. And that's how we make risotto. See how it slides around the plate? It's exactly what we want. Put a nice little shimmy on it. Put a little bit more Parmesan on it. And there you have it. Risotto that you can easily make at home. I will link in the description box below all the ingredients that I used and how much that you should use so that you can make this recipe at home.